I'm Sifu Jai, Chief Supervisor of Jou Miu, New York City, USA branch. We specialize in practical kung fu. You know, of course, not to say that one might say that weaponry in this day and age is not very practical. It's only you could say that too, but I take it deeper into the religious aspect because that's my prerequisite for learning for me and for myself. If I wasn't teaching kung fu, I would just do it all by myself. So when I'm teaching kung fu, everybody has to do it with me.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
That's just like I said before, so don't forget the origin of their learning, which is the Shaolin Buddhist temple. And nobody can learn any Shaolin Kung Fu unless they learn Buddhism first. In the original days, you had to be a monk, period. And it was only later during the Ming Dynasty where they started to allow people to learn Kung Fu in the temple who did not have to become monks. But they still had to follow those Buddhist rules. You can have good martial art practitioners from these various schools, but generally the tendency is for them to be lacking in their morals and their character.
So practicing Buddhism and Taoism along with the Kung Fu sort of maintains a certain integrity.
That's right.
Of the art and of the people.
Yeah, well, even in Buddhism, they always refer to Taoism. And what do they say? They say the middle road. I mean, Tao means the road, you know. So Sakyamuni said something about that. The middle road is the way to go. Because he tried both ways. Because when Sakyamuni was growing up, he was a royalty. He was a prince. He had a bunch of wives, all this kind of stuff. That was one end. And then the other end was he relinquished it all and became a hermit. That was the other end. Finally, he said the best thing is the middle road.
How do you define the middle road?
Well, it's easily defined. I mean, you can just think of it common sense terms. I mean, a little bit of this and that is fine, and not too much of that, not too much of that. That's what you should do. Don't overdo anything. Don't rule out all kind of things. So if you're practicing martial arts, don't neglect your mentality and your spirituality, and vice versa. That's how you can come to the harmonization of mind and body. Jou Miu means the ancestral mother's temple, which is just a code name, which is the same thing as the Queen of Heaven's palace.
You once referred to Kung Fu forms as moving meditation.
Yeah, quite.
Could you explain what you mean by that?
Well, meditation is defined by various people. It has different definitions. But in the, let's say, the Chan style of Buddhism, or Zen style of Buddhism, or Taoism, a certain style of meditation is nothing more than returning to the original state of mind, which is tabla el rasa, a blank tablet, emptiness, the great void, no volition, no thought, and that's a great goal to achieve, and it's very elusive. Because you can try hard, you'll never get it, and if you don't try hard enough, you'll never get it. That is the greatest state to be in. Because it's the maximum state of awareness, it's the maximum state of sensitivity.
He's actually performing on the tape we're going to hear.
How does the Kung Fu form synthesize?
Well, it's not restricted to Kung Fu forms, but in my case, Kung Fu form. When you practice Kung Fu, you have to think about the perfection of your movement, and you're doing this form, your set of exercises over and over and over and over and over until you've done it 10,000 times. And of course, now you've thought about it 10,000 times because you're trying to make yourself be correct physically. But just like anything else, when you keep doing it over and over again, it becomes a second nature. So once you can do it without thinking, then you're in meditation. Now you do it. Now you no longer have to think because you've already thought about it so many times. You've already done it so many times. Now there's no more thinking necessary.
Is it the same with the chants?
It's the same with the chant, sure. Well, as far as, I mean, the regular reasons are self-defense, and then there's health, and then there's mental cultivation, which is along with spiritual cultivation, you know, in general. If I have to get into a physical confrontation, I can exercise more of a compassion than somebody else might be expected to exercise because the situation becomes too dangerous. So when you're in physical danger, you know a limited amount of kung fu, you have no place to be exerting compassion. I mean, the more you know, the better you are, the more compassion you can put out.
And should you?
Well, you should, as according to each case. Each case has to be judged separately. You got to have the discriminating eye as to, you know, who deserves what, which is not easy at all to do accurately.
And what about compassion with respect to teaching your students? Like sometimes you seem to be extremely harsh on certain students and what some people might call tough love.
Mm-hmm. So what exactly are you asking me?
What's the role of compassion inside the school in teaching your students?
Well, well, yeah. What I'm hoping for when I'm teaching and I use my various harsh tactics is that people can see through it. In other words, when I do that, that is obviously it's supposed to be for their own benefit. It just comes out in this very way that seems very harsh, but you know, it's a way that I teach. It's a learning way. It's a learning way. I'm not like, oh, come on, you're so good, or yeah, that's very better. No, I'm like, well, no, that sucks, whatever, you know. And I may seem violent in certain ways when it comes to teaching. That's how you build up a student. That's how you build character. That's how you build humbleness. Humbleness is important. So of course, you know, when we are amongst ourselves, we don't have to act humble, really. You know, but it's really important about out there dealing with everyday life.
Can you apply your Kung Fu training to your music?
Well, the mental approach is absolutely the same.
How so?
Well, for example, like when you are in a fight, you have to use your knowledge of Kung Fu, and you have to adapt it to the situation, and especially like timing. Because you never know the timing of your opponent, how he's going to play. So it's just like playing jazz music. You can play at home and you can read a text and you can learn how to play the music, when you get into a situation where you have some kind of improv going, then you have to like be in conjunction with the timing of the other person playing. If not, it sounds terrible. So if you're not in conjunction with the timing of the person you're fighting, you get beat up. Unless you take the initiative of that, that's how you beat them up. So if you have a better timing when you're playing with another musician, you just sound better than them. But the mental state is the same. It should be, once you've practiced the thing 1,000 times, then you should not have to think anymore. And you're ready for any modifications necessary. Impromptu modifications.
Is that spontaneous action?
That is spontaneous action. So it's even when you're doing it by yourself, it's spontaneous action. But it's taking it to the limit when you have to deal with somebody else. Small vehicle means focus on the self. Focus on the self. Cultivate one's self to become better in every way, shape, and form. As opposed, as I go back again to the big vehicle, which is totally focused on never mind about yourself. Let's just worry about helping other people. So obviously, as I said before, just like Sakimuni said, and just as they say in Taoism, the middle road is always the best. So it's the same thing. In other words, if you always focus on yourself, there's a good point to it, because the sense is, well, if you focus on yourself, therefore once you develop yourself, you have a better chance of helping others, because you develop yourself in such a way. Therefore, your capacity for helping others should be increased once you focus yourself on helping others. So the other way is, yeah, sure, if the big vehicle, you just focus on helping others, and then the weak point is yourself. So by itself, it's not great. In other words, it's the idea is great, because you're helping others and you're never minding yourself. However, what you need is both sides. And just like they say in Western philosophy, all roads lead to Rome. So in the same way, in Buddhism, there are many different approaches to attaining nirvana.
It's unusual in that it doesn't have the same type of facilities, and it requires more sort of dedication from its students, but I think it's also unusual in that the openness with which the material is taught and the unlimited, it's up to you how far you go in it. I feel that in some of the other schools, from people I've talked to, you reach a ceiling as to how far you can go.
I think it's also an unusual school in that it's held together by the people who are there. It's not a money-making operation. So people, it depends on the quality of the students in order to keep the school going. And also it all rotates around Sifu, and it's in part driven by his personal relationship with all his students, which adds a different dimension to it.
So what attracts you about it? What attracts you? What do you get out of this?
Well, I first got into school through a good friend of mine, David Scott, who, through talking to him about spiritual things, he thought I might be interested in the school. And the school provides a great source of exercise and a great source of health improvement. But I also like the people in the school, and I like the community I've joined.
What got me started in this was I had no real outlets in the city. You know, I wasn't into any of the traditional sports except bike riding. And I found out about this from some friends, and I find it very healthy and positive mentally and physically. It's probably better for you than some of the other things I do, like bike riding, because that breaks you down. This builds you up. And Cheryl and I met doing this, so it takes up a lot of time, and it's very good for you.
Talk a little bit about that, about Sifu's relationship with the students. What do the students get out of Sifu's particular brand of teaching?
Sifu is interesting in that you can see him any day of the week, 24 hours a day. If he's available, he'll talk to you if you need him. And it doesn't have to be just about Kung Fu. His approach to Kung Fu is really a whole lifestyle, including the eating. He's vegetarian. He started all of us as vegetarians. Lately that's changed a little bit, but we still observe vegetarian days. Spiritually, he introduced all of us to Buddhism and Taoism, and he explains it. He's knowledgeable. He can read and write Chinese, and he speaks both Mandarin and Cantonese. He's really introduced us to a lot of people we never would have dealt with or known. He's very open, and he accepts people as they are.
I think also Sifu is a particularly good teacher because he knows how to focus in on who his students are. We're all a very diverse group of people, and he's able to meet all of us where we are. And that ability and his ability to teach Kung Fu and his talent at it particularly make the school very special.
When I joined the school, I asked him if I would graduate, and he said, maybe when you're 50.
More laughing.